The title of my talk today is We Are Each and Every One Worthy. I've been getting a powerful lesson the last couple of years through being part of a family who has been caring for an elderly father and mother-in-law. Lorraine Doberstein passed away last summer. Jim, my father-in-law, passed away last Monday. I have Jim's permission to share part of his life story with you today. It is a clear and vivid example of how we each hold the power of mindfully setting our life's mission, holding mindfully our forward path. This week, my father-in-law passed away. James was born in Chicago in the front bedroom of a house his grandfather built. His mother was a mild-mannered woman who was submissive to her husband. We've been told that his father was a brilliant man who worked on critical secret technology during World War II. He was also a lawyer and also an alcoholic. He was, we understand, not a good husband, not a good father. Jim grew up with housing insecurity. He witnessed his father abusing his mother. And before he was a teenager, his father completely abandoned the family. At that time, Jim was lucky enough to join the Boy Scouts. The Boy Scouts. And there he saw leaders as good role models. He developed trust in lifelong friendships for the first time. And as an adult, he volunteered in higher up leadership with the Scouts for decades. He came to believe that being good was a choice. He followed the Scout oath, helping other people at all times to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, morally straight. The Boy Scout oath became his reference model for his own life behavior. And he then internalized these principles. He became fairly successful in business. Their house became a physical and emotional center for a family on both sides, with many joyous celebrations for over 50 years. And yet, we saw within him insecurity of his own self-worth, doubting whether he had done well enough for those around him. So much so that he was often disappointed in himself. And today, we are looking back at the evolution, the stepping stones of consciousness across the generations. Was his father depressed? Was he from an abusive home? We have no information about my father-in-law's father. When Eric would ask his father for more details, his father offered very little information. When he did have to speak of his father, he mostly told tragic bits, the lessons he took from his childhood was that Eric's grandfather was a reference role model of everything not to do as a husband and a father. In unity principle of sort of way, Jim denied the power of his childhood experience, denied the power to define his way of being as an adult, as a father, as a grandfather, and great-grandfather. He somehow knew how to figure out that we cannot control what happens to us, but we sure can control how we respond to it. Despite all the good that he brought into the world, his insecurity about his worth remained. He admitted that he really hadn't made, when we questioned him, any major life moral mistakes. And yet he was never satisfied within himself. It seemed like he almost resisted joy, considering it as something he was not worthy of having. As late as the last weeks of his life, he was wondering still if he was good enough. I gave him our unity principles, and we talked about that our essence is of God, and therefore we are each and every one inherently good. And though he listened politely, I sensed he couldn't believe it. He was too near the end of his journey to accept such a radical change in the perspective of his life. As we all have witnessed, our childhood self-esteem carries through for many of us for the rest of our lives. Watching Jim struggle with his relationship with his long gone father started us to think of the best way to deny or release some of this uncomfortable history. Doesn't leaving or obscuring the causes of these lessons to linger then in succeeding generations if we aren't facing it? We should, I believe, try to retain this history and the shared lessons learned, that they can be remembered across the next generations of loved ones. I hope our family wisdom lessons will be passed from his father, Eric, to our children, to our grandchildren, to our great grandchildren. And in the future, those bright, long little souls may shine even brighter. I see each of our generations advancing in their self-understanding and their communication of feelings in the world. Eric and I wondered how Jim's life would have unfolded if only somehow, within his precious Boy Scout oath, it had included this phrase from our unity teachings: we are all inherently good. As we went through this emotional experience, I looked for our unity principles at work. Love, light, power, and God's enduring presence. For most of us, in our prayers in times like this, we are keenly aware of the incredible blessings that we have been given, that we have been born into a family, my own family of unity congregants since the early 50s. Our family believes in reincarnation, and personally, we find that to be a great solace in imagining our family moving forward, getting another at bat, so to speak. I had to get that in. Grandpa just loved baseball. I had to get that in there somewhere. He would love another at bat. And we must now be trusting that we are each going to Earth School in our next incarnation, as we put it, believing that with each life experience, we bring greater wisdom and compassion into our lives and those around us. I implore you to do the following. Review what you know of your family's history. Accept your own unique life lessons. Identify where your big blocks are and accept that you have some evolving yet to do. Your personal, one-of-a-kind life mission awaits you. Believe it to be possible to overcome all that has come before, my dear friends, because we are asked to accept the circumstances and the variable skills of those who raised us. We must remember that they were all learning on the job, so to speak. We are all, perhaps, part of the journey, and part of it is learning to forgive them, knowing that we all have feet of clay, knowing that we have come here now to learn and to grow and to find a way to see ourselves as God sees us. God trusting us to seek the light with all our might, trusting us to learn and grow and overcome adversity, learning to shed the false layers of protective armor in order to find our own way to the core truth of our being, the truth that we are all whole and free and made in God's image. This, I believe, is our destiny. This is our sacred calling. My friends, pray that we may learn to understand ourselves and others each and every day more fully, with hearts filled with love and compassion. Namaste.